For any outsider, the capital Dhaka is an assault on the senses. More than 20 million people live in this noisy, pulsating, gridlocked city. Dhaka University is as close as you'll get to a quiet oasis, a place to study, to think, and to sometimes change history. Okay, the famous student leaders, how are you? Thank you for meeting us. I've come here to meet 4 of the students who took on a dictatorship and won. Mitu Akhter, Abdul Kader, Mira and Rifat Rashid braved weeks of gunfire from security forces that killed hundreds of protesters. So you all saw friends killed around here?
Yeah. There is a lot of people killed in this movement, and there was a terrible experience.
The campaign they fought is now etched in murals around the university. Unarmed idealists facing bullets and armoured combat vehicles in hope of a better future.
আমার ফ্যামিলি বিশ্বাস করেছিল আমি আসলে মারা গেছি, তারা জাস্ট আমার লাশটা চাচ্ছিল, কিন্তু আমরা আসলে আন্দোলনটাকে ফ্রন্টের দিকে এগিয়ে নিয়ে গেছি।
It started with simple protests over a government quota system, which students believed the regime was using to reserve jobs for its supporters. But after mass arrests and mass killings, it turned into a nationwide uprising to oust Sheikh Hasina.
আমাদের আর পিছে ফিরোর মানে তাকানোর কোনো সুযোগ নেই। যদি আমরা বাসি আমরা হচ্ছে কি এই যে ফ্যাসিস্টকে খেদানো চান আমাদের আর কোনো ওয়ে নাই।
I just know one thing, that I have to survive, I have to achieve peace, I have to achieve the equal rights. I'm fighting for this, right?
For most of their lives, Sheikh Hasina had been their only ruler. Embraced by world leaders, she revelled in the moniker of Asia's Iron Lady, determined to drag her country from poverty and bring equality to women. At least that was the image her regime created. By 2024, much of Bangladesh's Gen Z had a different view.
She is the mother of President Sheikh Hasina.
But to many in their parents' generation, Sheikh Hasina had been a tragic heroine. Her father was Bangladesh's founding president, Mujibur Rahman. He came to power in 1971, leading a war of independence from Pakistan. 4 years later, while Sheikh Hasina was visiting Europe, he was murdered in a military coup. The rebel soldiers also slaughtered most of her family.
My father, the then president, was brutally murdered. Not only him, my mother, my 3 brothers, my 2 sister-in-laws, my uncle, altogether 18 members were killed. And then the power was captured by the military dictator.
After 6 years of exile in India, she returned to fight for democracy, leading her father's Awami League party. In 1996, at the age of 48, she was elected to her first term as Prime Minister.
I feel it's the people's victory. People fought for their voting right.
But from the outset, this professed Democrat had little tolerance of opposition, something many attribute to the murder of her family.
It must have been the most incredible, horrifying psychological trauma for Sheikh Hasina to have experienced the massacre of their closest family members. It would be difficult to not have a very heightened consciousness of your own insecurity.
Sarah Hussain is a human rights lawyer whose father was once a close comrade of Sheikh Hasina's father. Do you think it did lead her to see all opposition in the same terms as the people who killed her family, as traitors, as evil, as anti-Bangladesh?
Exactly, yes. That explains in a way why she went from being someone who was very much a survivor of a human rights violation to someone who became an authoritarian who then perpetrated gross violations and with impunity and allowed others to do that.
In her second term as Prime Minister, security forces were locking up opposition figures without trial. Among them, a popular official with the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, Sajidul Islam Sumon. In December 2013, eyewitnesses say he and 5 friends were taken by authorities and never seen again.
They were not criminals. They were activists, strong organizers for opposition party.
Sajidul's sister, Sanjida Islam Tulay, is haunted by the day he disappeared.
I was thinking why I was not there to stop the car, why I could not save him then. So that was killing me always inside, every day from then. I know for sure if it was happened to me, my brother would have saved me.
Her mother, Hazera Khatun, went to the authorities every day for 2 years pleading for information. They told her nothing.
কেন নিল কি দোষ আমার ছেলের আমার ছেলে নাই আমি কি করব পয়সা থেকে
After Sheikh Hasina won the 2014 election, the number of reported disappearances skyrocketed. Sanjida and her mother began a support group for families of the missing. They started with 8 families. Now there are more than 1,000.
Every day, every night, they pray for their son, for their husbands, for their fathers' return. They want them alive back.
The group is called Maya Duck, meaning Mother's Call. Families meet in Sanjida's home to share information. Their sadness is never far from the surface.
Every family member have the same pain we are passing through each day. It is heavy and it is killing us. When we see Hasina, we just only see that killer.
Among today's gathering is Hummam Kader Chowdhury, the son of a prominent opposition leader who was hanged in 2015 by Hasina's regime. 9 months later, Hummam was abducted and locked in a windowless cell.
Yeah, 7 months in isolation in a cell, and yeah, that was just the beginning. You know, the trauma doesn't end with you coming out. I mean, it's something that kind of stays with you forever. And fortunately, I got the support that I needed from these guys here, other survivors, other families that are still waiting for their loved ones to come back. So, yeah.
Hummam was held in a notorious secret detention centre called the House of Mirrors. It was run by GGFI, the Defence Intelligence Agency that reported directly to Sheikh Hasina's office.
To be honest, it seems quite odd that it's called the House of Mirrors, because that's one place where you don't have a reflection. This is one place where you kind of lose yourself. This is a place where you don't have an identity anymore. It's somewhere where that's actually beaten out of you. You are no longer human.
And you were beaten and tortured?
Yes, on multiple occasions. They come in, they pick you up and take you in for interrogations and beatings whenever they like. So it's a mental torture. That's actually the worst part.
And did they ever tell you what you were supposed to have done wrong?
None. Nothing.
The interim government that replaced Sheikh Hasina has formed a commission to investigate the disappearances. Human rights activist Muhammad Yunus is one of its members.
একবার ভাবুন তো একটি মানুষ মাসের পর মাস তাকে হাত পা বাঁধা অবস্থায় একটি জায়গায় রাখা হচ্ছে, পিটানো হয়, ভয়ভীতি প্রদর্শন করা হয়, মাঝে মাঝে কারেন্ট শব্দ হয়। এই ধরনের ভয়াবহ তার সামনে যখন মুখোমুখি আমরা হই, তখন আর নিজেদেরকে মানুষের শ্রেণীতে ফেলতে পারি না।
In the days after Sheikh Hasina fled, some of the disappeared were suddenly released. Abdullahil Aman Azmi was dumped on a country road on August 7th after 8 terrifying years in the House of Mirrors.
It was 69,794 hours. Unbelievable, tormenting days. I never slept at night. I could never sleep at night. Every night, anxiety, worry, any little sound, I was scared. Are they coming to take me away? Just eagerly waiting for the dawn, because they wouldn't take me out at dawn and kill me.
Once a decorated brigadier general in the Bangladesh army, he was dismissed without explanation in 2009, then 7 years later, jailed without charge.
You are not allowed to talk to anybody. Every time this handcuffed, blindfolded, the mask on. The doors and windows are all closed and black painted. I did not see natural light, no sun, no moon, sky, cloud, nothing.
He had once lived in the officers' quarters near Defence Intelligence at Dhaka's main military complex. He eventually worked out he was imprisoned on the same base.
They put me in joint interrogation cell. This cell is in case any armed forces personnel gets involved in any serious crime and which cannot be proved in normal investigation. They are sent there for interrogation, if need be torture, and find out the truth.
His sudden release returned him to his family and the children he last saw as infants.
One was almost 10, another was 11 and a half. I feel so bad that I couldn't see them growing up. The worst thing that has happened is I lost my mother. She was not my mother, she was my best friend in my life.
Many of the disappeared never emerged. Investigator Muhammad Yunus fears the fates of hundreds of missing people may never be known.
এবং এখন পর্যন্ত যারা এই ধরনের ঘটনার সাথে যুক্ত তাদের বড় অংশ এখন পর্যন্ত বাকিগুলি এজেন্সিগুলির ভিতর কর্মরত। কারণ আমরা ইতিমধ্যে জেনেছি যে কিছু কিছু কতিপয় মানুষ, কতিপয় সদস্য কিছু মানুষ পরিবারকে ইতিমধ্যে নানাভাবে ভয়ভীতি প্রদর্শন করছে, লোভ দেখাচ্ছে, চুপ থাকতে বলছে।
Despite the alleged attempts at cover-up, he is certain he knows who carried out the abductions. You see their vehicles all over Dhaka, an elite paramilitary force called the Rapid Action Battalion, or RAB.
এখানে খুব স্পষ্ট সাক্ষ্য প্রমাণ পাওয়া যাচ্ছে যে এই কাজের সাথে র্যাপিড অ্যাকশন ব্যাটালিয়ন র্যাব এবং র্যাবের গোয়েন্দা সংস্থা যুক্ত।
The Rapid Action Battalion was set up in 2004 as a counter-terrorism force with training and technical support from the US and Britain. It grew to 12,000 officers, most seconded from the police and armed forces. But it was deployed as a death squad.
ট্রেন লাইনে ফেলে দেওয়া হয় জীবিত অথবা মৃত ব্যক্তিকে, যাতে ট্রেন কাটা পড়ার পর তাদেরকে চিহ্নিত করতে কষ্ট হয়। কাউকে কাউকে ব্রিজের উপরে নিয়ে গুলি করে মারা হয় এবং এটা টার্গেট প্র্যাকটিসও।
The disappearances helped crush the main opposition group, the Bangladesh Nationalist Party. In 2018, the regime jailed its leader, Khaleda Zia, on what many called trumped-up charges.
Anyone who opposed Sheikh Hasina would be seen as not only an anti-national or an anti-state element, but a terrorist, and be branded as that. Not only would they be prevented from operating politically, but they couldn't operate their businesses, they couldn't conduct their professions, their family members couldn't work, they would be smeared, they would be intimidated.
Lawyer Rajon Bapari helped publish a book pointing out flaws in the Khaleda Zia trial. The day after it was published, he was waiting for a taxi in this busy street and was kidnapped at gunpoint.
পিক করে পিছন থেকে এসে এইভাবে ধরে এন্ড কোমরে বেল্টে ধরে গান বের করে সাথে সাথে আমাকে কালো কাপড় দিয়ে মুখটা ঢেকে ফেলে। আমি চিৎকার করি,
He was driven around for what seemed like hours, losing any sense of where he was.
আমি তাদেরকে বলতে থাকি যে আমি একজন আইনজীবী, আপনারা কারা, আপনাদের আইডেন্টিটি কি, আমাকে কেন এইভাবে তুলে নিচ্ছেন, তারা কোনো উত্তর দেয় না। আমাকে যখন গাড়িতে তোলা হয়, তোলার পরে আমাকে পিস্তলের বাট দিয়ে আমাকে মাথায় আঘাত করা হয়। তখন আমি আমার পিছনের দিকে আমাকে ফেটে যায়।
He was taken to a room where he was kept blindfolded for days.
দুজন ধরে রাখে এবং অনবরত তারা আমার এই দুই হাতের ফিঙ্গারে বড় লাঠি দিয়ে মারতে থাকে এবং এখনো সেই মারের যে ফেটে গিয়েছিল হাতটা, সেই দাগটা এখনো দৃশ্যমান। তৎক্ষণাৎ চিৎকার শুরু করি, খুব জোরে জোরে চিৎকার শুরু করি।
They asked over and over about the book.
আপনি একজন আইনজীবী হয়ে এটা কি করে পারলেন যে এগুলো কেন বাইর করছেন, আপনার উদ্দেশ্য কি?
Day after day the torture intensified. They forced him to balance over 2-inch nails.
এভাবে আমি কতক্ষণ দাঁড়িয়ে থাকতে পারবো? তখন তারা মোটা লাঠি দিয়ে এখান থেকে শুরু করে এখানে পর্যন্ত পেটাতো, এই র্যান্ডম এই পর্যন্ত পেটাতো এবং আমার অনেকবার ইউরিন বের হয়ে গেছে। এইভাবে আর দাঁড়িয়ে থাকতে পারতাম না, সহ্য না করতে পেরে আমি ওই পেরেকের মধ্যে আমার গোড়ালিটা নামিয়ে দিতাম, তখন সেন্সলেস হয়ে যেত।
After a week they told him they were going to shoot him.
তোমাকে এখন তোলা হবে, তোমাকে আমরা এখন ক্রস ফায়ার দিব।
And that's when the nightmare turned surreal.
করে দুর্নীতি মামলায় আদালতে দেয়া খালেদা জিয়ার জবানবন্দি বই আকারে প্রকাশের অভিযোগে দুজনকে গ্রেফতার করেছে র্যাব।
The next day, instead of being executed, he was paraded at a press conference at the RAB Media Centre.
উদ্দেশ্য হচ্ছে দেশের মানুষকে, দেশের জনগণকে একটা ভোগান্তিতে ফেলানো।
The Bangladeshi media dutifully reported this.
অসত্য তথ্য সন্নিবেশিত এই বই প্রকাশ করে আদালত সম্পর্কে জনমনে ভ্রান্ত ধারণা দেওয়ার চেষ্টা করছে চক্রটি।
Rajong claims he recognized a RAB company commander, Mahoudin Faruqi, as one of the kidnappers who'd grabbed him off the street.
উনি মহিউদ্দিন ফারুকী তখন সিভিল ড্রেসে ছিলেন এবং
The US imposed sanctions on RAB in 2021, but Britain and the Netherlands continued to provide equipment and training. In December, the Commission of Inquiry into Disappearances found RAB to be responsible for kidnappings. Its interim report accused Sheikh Hasina of direct involvement in ordering them.
যে প্রধানমন্ত্রীও এর দায় এড়াতে পারেন না।
Despite the repression at home, Sheikh Hasina continued to be showered with international prizes. Last year, at the age of 76, she must have felt untouchable. Nobody imagined a fight with university students could be her downfall. In June, students learned that nearly a third of civil service jobs would be reserved for grandchildren of independence fighters. Facing an already bleak job market, Gen Z took a stand.
আমরা হচ্ছে after graduation we will get a good job, government job. কোটা সিস্টেমটা ছিল সেটা কোনোভাবেই মেনে নেওয়ার মতো না।
The demonstrations spread throughout the country under the banner Students Against Discrimination. But rather than negotiating, the regime attacked. The Awami League student wing beat up protesters.
And then next police shooting on us, there are many students got attacked and everywhere was just blood. You hear the sound of grenade, the sound of shooting. They shoot from the helicopter too.
The carnage was so great that bodies started being buried in this mass grave in the main cemetery. The slaughter was meant to stop the protests, but it backfired. The students fought on even harder, and outraged Bangladeshis who'd been watching from the sidelines joined them.
Those kids were on the street, age of my kids. My daughter's at university, my son's out of school. You could see that that's who was being killed, and I think that's just like, what is going on? What power is important enough for you to carry on doing that? So I think that was a sentiment that was really broadly shared.
On August 5th, protesters surrounded Sheikh Hasina's residence.
আগের দিন রাতে হলো ঘুমাতেই পারিনি ওরকম ভাবে যে আসলে পরের দিন কি হবে, আর্মি আমাদের বিট্রে করবে নাকি আর্মি বিট্রে করবে না। আসলে যদি আমাদেরকে আর্মি বিট্রে করে তাহলে হচ্ছে আমরা মানে হেরে যাব, আমাদের আসলে তারপর আরো অনেক লাশ দেখতে হবে।
The Army Chief of Staff, General Wahidah, had just been appointed by Sheikh Hasina and is married to her cousin. But to the surprise of many, he resisted calls to crush the protests. In this, his first ever television interview, he explains his reason.
We don't shoot at the civilian. It's not in our culture. We wanted that things should happen very peacefully, the peaceful transition, less of bloodshed, less of chaos and confusion, less of destruction of property, all this.
With the army holding back, the seemingly impregnable regime fell like a house of cards. Students stormed the residence after news broke that Sheikh Hasina had fled.
I can't even express the feeling in words. The feeling was unbelievable. We win. We finally win.
And that's why we feel proud and we feel strong. We are the people of Bangladesh and we have that courage.
And this time there was no military coup to fill the power vacuum.
We believe that military should not engage in politics. So we did not intervene. This is not our cup of tea.
At the students' urging, the Bangladesh president invited Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus to form an interim government. The celebrations ran for days. Students had achieved the impossible. But for those tasked with rebuilding the country, the work had just begun.
Hi there.
Hello, sir.
How are you here?
Very well, thank you very much for talking to us. I know you're probably the busiest man in Bangladesh right now. Muhammad Yunus is not a politician. He's a humanitarian who won the Nobel Peace Prize for pioneering microloans for impoverished families. That is the hot seat there. Leading Bangladesh is not a role he asked for or expected.
The students who called me up, and I said, no, not me. I don't want to get involved with running the country. You're much capable people in Bangladesh. You find them out. So I don't know. Everybody says you have to be there.
Nahid Islam, who led the student protests, told him there was no one else.
তখন ভেবেছে যে আমাদের এমন একজন ব্যক্তি দরকার এই মুহূর্তে যে যার একটা সর্বজন গ্রহণযোগ্যতা আছে, পিপল যাকে অ্যাকসেপ্ট করবে এবং ইন্টারন্যাশনালিও যার একটা অ্যাকসেপ্টেন্স আছে যে এই জুলাই রেভলিউশনটাকে বিশ্বের সামনে তুলে ধরতে পারবে। সো ডক্টর ইউনুস এরকম একজন ক্যারেক্টার, আমরা তার কোনো বিকল্প আসলে পাইনি।
At the time, Dr. Yunus had been in Paris, avoiding one of the regime's frequent attempts to jail him.
People were saying, don't come back because things are getting very hot here. Don't come back because the moment you land, you'll end up in jail.
Ever since he won the Nobel Prize in 2006, Sheikh Hasina displayed an almost obsessive hatred of him.
তাকেও আবার পদ্মা নদীতে দিয়ে দুইটা চুবনি দিয়ে উঠাই নেওয়া উচিত, মরে যাতে না যায়, একটু পদ্মা নদীতে দুইটা চুবনি দিয়ে সেতুতে তুলে দেওয়া উচিত, তাহলে যদি এদের শিক্ষা হয়।
Authorities accused him of everything from sabotage to corruption.
I'm a terrorist. I'm a bloodsucker. People wonder, why does she do that? What does she get out of it?
As it turned out, Dr. Yunus did return to replace her. In August 2024, the 84-year-old was sworn in as chief advisor to the interim government. He chose a cabinet of technocrats and idealists, including Nahid Islam, who weeks earlier had been under arrest and beaten by authorities. There are times Dr. Yunus wonders what he's got himself into.
Everybody has an idea what needs to be done. But when you get here, so kind of suddenly you get numb. How do you do it? So you try to overcome the numbness and get activated and so on. So we're learning on the job.
International fame only gets you so far in a former dictatorship. Along with his new ministers and their staff, he's found that telling the bureaucracy what to do doesn't mean they're listening.
It's very difficult. You don't know whether the person that you are giving your instructions is going to follow it or turn it around against you.
The way the country used to be run was a mix of bureaucratic self-interest and corporate plunder. The interim government estimates ministers, regime cronies and other corrupt associates were siphoning $16 billion a year out of Bangladesh.
It was at the brink of a free fall. We have drawn down the reserves from 48 billion to 18 billion. It would have lasted a few more months. So this government might have fallen even without this revolution.
Dr. Ahsan Mansour is a former IMF economist who's been brought in to run the central bank. He says Sheikh Hasina's regime and its cronies were literally robbing banks, directing them to give billions in loans to sometimes fictitious companies.
I have never seen in my 28 years of IMF career in any country this level of state intervention with private sector oligarchs to take over the whole banking system. Not to control those banks only, control and rob. Take the money out of the country. So that's a systematic state-sponsored fraudulent activities.
To investigate allegations.
Much of the money allegedly ended up in luxury property in London, where one of Sheikh Hasina's senior ministers had become a property magnate.
Hello. Hello.
The former land minister, Saifuzzaman Chowdhury, had a salary of less than $15,000 a year, but he'd built up a property portfolio worth $500 million.
How many properties do you have in London?
In 2023, Al Jazeera's investigative unit secretly filmed him at his $14 million London home.
Nice penthouse. But I also bought a villa.
It's only one of more than 350 properties he owns in Britain, with even more worldwide.
This is my new rules. This is my work. I love this house.
He boasted of his love of expensive shoes.
I bought have £3,000 each. Each? Each. 3,000 pounds. Very nice. In Bond Street.
And his passion for buying suits.
I love suits. Super 200, Super 180, Super 200 cost £6,000.
He said Sheikh Hasina was aware he had money on the side.
She knows I have a business here.
Investigators have found a trail of properties owned by Hasina's cronies, stretching from London to Dubai, Singapore, and New York.
It's very unfortunate and disgusting, no question about it. It is pathetic, it is painful, it is shameful. And we as a country, I think, we must not allow that to happen again.
That central bank will flag up.
Mr. Chowdhury insists his wealth comes from honest investments outside Bangladesh, and that the accusations against him are politically motivated. But he's one of the figures the interim government is investigating to try to claw back the country's missing money.
We're talking at least tens of billions of dollars, not just billions of dollars. So we hope that we can create the biggest asset recovery effort ever seen in the world.
In the months after Sheikh Hasina fled, more senior regime figures tried to move their assets abroad. Britain's anti-corruption minister at the time was none other than Sheikh Hasina's niece.
And let me make one thing clear. We have legislation in our country to make sure we do not let people enter who are not conducive to the public good.
Tulip Siddiq is the daughter of Sheikh Hasina's younger sister, Rahana, one of the few to escape the massacre of Hasina's family in the 1975 coup. Ms. Siddiq was born in London and worked as a European lobbyist for Sheikh Hasina's party, the Awami League. In 2015, she became a Labour MP, thanking Awami League supporters in Britain for her victory.
আপনাদের সাহায্য ছাড়া আমি কখনোই ব্রিটিশ এমপি হিসাবে এখানে দাঁড়াতে পারতাম না।
After Labour came to power in July 2024, she was put in charge of stopping illicit finance and money laundering. Did it surprise you to see a close relative of the former leader appointed to such a position by the British government?
I would have expected they did a better vetting before making that appointment.
Tulip Siddiq had remained close to Sheikh Hasina, meeting her on visits to Britain. Before becoming an MP, Ms. Siddiq joined her in the Kremlin for the signing of a nuclear deal that's now being investigated for massive kickbacks. She says she had no involvement in the deal or any discussions and was just visiting her aunt.
Wondering what your reasoning is for stepping down today. Do you still insist that you haven't done anything wrong?
She resigned as Economic Secretary after Bangladesh's Anti-Corruption Commission, or ACC, began investigating her, amid claims she had ties to London properties bought by Hasina's allies.
She should resign sooner.
But she insists the allegations are baseless and politically motivated, saying the ACC didn't respond to her denials or provide any evidence to support the claims. Earlier, Britain's independent advisor on ministerial standards cleared her of impropriety. Few in Bangladesh can afford expensive properties, suits, or designer shoes. Many are struggling to buy food staples like rice and fish.
Nothing functions anymore. Financial system didn't work. Banks, suddenly you see, it's not a bank, it's a robbery outfit. People get very frustrated. One is the expectation level. Other side is the damage level that you are dealing with.
People are also hungry for justice. The months since the revolution have brought ever more disturbing allegations of police and military involvement in forced disappearances. The kidnapping, torture and murder of Sheikh Hasina's real or imagined opponents. In February, Dr. Yunus visited the notorious House of Mirrors detention centre that had been run by military intelligence. Former Brigadier General Abdullahil Amanazmi showed where he'd been held illegally for 8 years. This was one of a network of secret prisons and torture centres.
We have to make sure that it's not repeated in future. Nowhere near it. This is the worst ever in the whole world possible.
He's promised those responsible will be punished, no matter their rank.
There are several now, 22 major generals and other high officials. Their passports have been seized. We made it clear. Justice is justice. We are not going to go slow on anybody.
But Sanjida Islam Tulay, who represents victims' families, says the government is moving too slowly.
We know Hasina fled, the head of the regime, she fled, but the rest of the structure, the body is still there, whom we have allegation against, who did all those enforced disappearances and extrajudicial killing, still there in uniform.
The most infamous security force, the Rapid Action Battalion, or RAB, is still operating. Today, for the first time, its Director General has agreed to be interviewed by foreign television.
Hello, sir. Harry Campbell.
Korea police officer Shahidur Rahman has been appointed to clean up the paramilitary force. whose officers allegedly took part in kidnappings, torture and executions.
I am really very shocked, and this is disgusting for us, that we have to bear this sort of allegation on us. We are trying to rebuild our reputation, rebuild our rep, and we are now strictly following the rules and regulations, the laws, the human rights issues.
And what is happening to the officers who've been accused of these crimes?
Those who have been accused, they are under investigation and they will have to face the music, what they did earlier.
Are there still some serving in RAB now who have been accused of these crimes?
We are not sure about I'm not sure whether they are here or not.
They are still there serving, definitely. People are still scared. That's the trauma for the victim families.
The government commission investigating the disappearances says the Rapid Action Battalion should be disbanded. The challenge is that some other law enforcement groups are barely functioning. During the uprising, mobs attacked and burned police stations and vehicles. Thousands of police fled. Much of the anger stemmed from the security forces' violent crackdown on the protests. The UN Human Rights Office estimates up to 1,400 people were killed, including 180 children, with thousands wounded. In this military hospital in Dhaka, many are still fighting to recover.
They have spinal injury, paraplegia, what we call in medical term quadriplegia or paraplegia.
Yeah. How many patients have you had from the protests in total?
In total, 2,613. 2613.
And the majority have been gunshot wounds?
Yeah.
It's not the whole number of injured protesters. There's other hospitals who are treating victims. Yeah.
All over the country. All over the country.
Victims included a 10-year-old child. Imran was shot in the head on August 5th, the day Sheikh Hasina fled to India.
So he also joined the protest, and unfortunately he was hit by the bullet.
He was shot by the police, a young boy, in a protest.
Unfortunately. So he is very brave.
For his mother Irene, it has been an unending nightmare. What was your reaction when you found that police had shot your little boy?
কি আর মনে হবে স্যার, তারা প্রশাসনের লোক, তাদের উপরে আর কি অভিযোগ আমি করতে পারি? আর আমার ওই মামলা করা হয়েছে, মামলা যে করছি ওরা আমারে খুব ফোনে অনেক ইয়া করতে আছে যে এলাকায় আসতে পারবা না।
Show us the scans. But for this family at least there is hope. Imran, now 11, has made a near miraculous recovery from a gunshot that should have killed him. Wow, that is a massive head wound.
Massive head injury.
Despite UN findings that soldiers also shot at protesters, the army has assumed some police duties, like street patrols and protecting public buildings. Chief of Staff General Wahidah says it's not a role the army wants.
We are not trained for this. It is a challenge since civil administration is not properly functioning, I must say. The police is not properly functioning. So it's a huge void, huge task.
In this city of 20 million people, we've been trying to find someone to speak in defence of Sheikh Hasina's record. She wouldn't comment, nor would any former ally we approached. The Awami League headquarters itself is deserted after having been trashed by protesters. It's as if the revelations of plunder and mass murder have sent everyone ducking for cover, leaving Sheikh Hasina just one powerful supporter: India. Bangladesh's giant neighbour has not only given her sanctuary, it's ignored the government's demands to extradite her for crimes against humanity.
As long as she's away, people of Bangladesh, every one of them, will feel that justice is not done,
India supported her regime as a counter to its arch-rival Pakistan. Sheikh Hasina also promised that this majority Muslim nation would never be ruled by Islamic hardliners, a stance that won her strong support with the large Hindu minority. Naveen Murshid is a political scientist specialising in India-Bangladesh relations.
This is exactly the narrative that she had put forward with her Indian counterparts. Right? That, keep supporting us, because if you don't keep supporting us, this country is going to become an Islamist country, is going to become the new Afghanistan, and so on.
Further chaos and mayhem playing out on the streets of Bangladesh. Why have the temples been attacked?
Since Sheikh Hasina was overthrown, Indian news and social media have vilified the new Bangladesh, claiming Hindus, who make up about 8% of the population, are living in terror.
Have a look at these visuals. Atrocities being carried out against Bangladeshi minorities, a genocide of Hindus, quote unquote, by Islamist extremists, a wave of terror against this community.
While such claims are false, some Hindus have experienced violence. In December, arsonists burned this family-run temple on the edge of Dhaka. Ratan Kumar Ghosh is the temple custodian.
ব্যথিত হয়েছিলাম যে আমি কেন আমার নিজের শরীরের ভারটা হলো না আমার গড সেভ ভগবানকে আমি রক্ষা করতে পারলাম না এটা আমার খুব খারাপ লেগেছে আমি তো কাউকে কোনো ক্ষতি করি নাই যে কেন তারা আমার
Opportunistically, Hindu homes were targeted, but not in the sense that the Indian media would want us to believe.
Most attacks after the regime's collapse appear to have been political payback.
They are not looking for Hindus. They were people attacking followers of Hasina. And Hindus happen to be followers of Hasina. So one of my first address to the nation was, we are a family. We are a family with many religions, many beliefs, many political followers. We disagree with each other. But that doesn't mean you fall apart.
But many Hindus and secular Muslims fear hardliners are trying to fill the power vacuum. Even this family kite festival has caused alarm. Every January, residents of Old Dhaka fly kites and shoot fireworks for the Shakrin festival, marking the beginning of a new harvest season. Religious conservatives have long objected to their rooftop parties, with DJs, dancing and sometimes alcohol. This year they felt emboldened to stop them.
Before the festival began, young Islamic activists came through this neighbourhood asking people not to take part in this festival. Now, by all accounts, they were quite polite, but residents got the message.
As the sun goes down, most of the rooftops are quiet. The only raucous celebrations, in fact the only fireworks, are in the mainly Hindu buildings. Most Muslims are watching from behind their windows. This was a typical rooftop party last year. This year the same rooftop is empty. Downstairs, young men march against the festival, uploading their protest to social media. The following day, to Dr. Yunus's disquiet, a government-appointed committee recommended removing secularism from the constitution.
If you are a democratic country, I think secularism go with it. So you cannot divide people in different segments and have a democratic country.
Sheikh Hasina's old electoral rival, the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, is demanding elections by December. Dr. Yunus wants to hold off until the middle of 2026 to try to lock in democratic reforms.
What I'm trying to do, kind of build a consensus before we go to the election, sign off with the declaration that we agree on these basic principles of the government. All these blood that's shed for the new Bangladesh, as we call it, it's not just to hold an election. Is to make sure this is really new Bangladesh,
Will the Awami League be able to take part in that election?
It's up to their decision. We have not banned it. So Awami League is to decide whether they want to contest the election.
I think if there are elections today, it's the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, the BNP, that would come to power, right? That might be a good thing, that might not be a good thing. You know, there is that kind of a risk that things would just go back to how they were in, under Sheikh Hasina's regime, because the BNP is not very different from the Awami League. You know, it's the two peas in a pod.
Some of the student protesters don't trust any establishment politicians. In February 2025, Nahid Islam resigned from the interim government to launch a new student-backed party.
হাজারো শহীদদের আত্মত্যাগের বিনিময়ে অর্জিত এই নতুন স্বাধীনতা কেবল একটি সরকার পতন করে আরেকটি সরকার বসানোর জন্যই ঘটেনি। যেন জনগণের অধিকার ভিত্তিক ও মর্যাদা ভিত্তিক একটি রাষ্ট্র পুনর্গঠিত হয়। সেই লক্ষ্য নিয়েই আমরা জাতীয় নাগরিক পার্টি এনসিপির প্রতিষ্ঠার ঘোষণা দিচ্ছি।
From India, Sheikh Hasina has also called for a new beginning. In an audio message devoid of self-reflection or apology, she urged Bangladeshis to rise up against Muhammad Yunus.
কারণ ইউনূস সাহেবের ক্ষমতা দখল সম্পূর্ণ অবৈধ, অসাংবিধানিক, অস্ত্র অর্থের জোরে মানুষ খুন করে মানুষের লাশের উপর পাড়া দিয়ে সে ক্ষমতা এসেছে। দেশকে রক্ষা করতে হবে, তার জন্য সকলকে ঘুরে দাঁড়াতে হবে, প্রতিরোধ গড়ে তুলতে হবে।
Angry students torched her abandoned family home in retaliation. In this volatile climate, a fragile and temporary government is trying to lay the foundations for a genuine democracy. For decades, this young country has been ruled by dark forces. Bangladeshis are now waiting to see if this really is the start of a new era or a false dawn.